Hey folks, thanks for tuning in today. My name is Justin Lutz. I'm the founder of Strong Bong Barbell Training. This is an introduction to barbell strength training. Quick disclaimer, all of the information in this video comes from this book, Starting Strength, Basic Barbell Training, 3rd edition by Mark Ripito. It's the best-selling book on the topic of strength training. It sold over 1 million copies worldwide. It's available on Audible in the audiobook format, and it's available in paperback and Kindle versions on Amazon. So if you don't have it already, if you have any interest in the topic of strength training, you absolutely have to get this book. It will change your life. I listen to the audiobook regularly. Let's get right into it. What is a barbell? On the top right, we have a 2.2 meter, 20 kilo standard Olympic barbell. You should try to find one that looks similar to this. Most barbells are 20 kilos, which is equal to 45 pounds, but lighter ones are available. You should avoid mini bars and these preloaded barbells that you see in the second picture. These are not good because they're not the right size. Barbells are the most effective strength training tool ever created. That's why we use them. Barbells allow natural human movement patterns to be loaded incrementally from very light to very heavy. And we have very small plates so we can make the increments very fine-tuned. Small jumps in weight. Why strength training? I'm sure you've heard that strength training is good in general. Everybody knows that. But did you know that physical strength is the most important thing in life? And by that I mean in nature, in biology. It's true, actually, that strength is a feature of evolution and natural selection. It's what determines the quality and quantity of your life. So we should define it, because it's so important, we should define it carefully. What is strength? It's force production. Strength is your ability to produce force against an external resistance. So it's not your ability to run more miles or do more burpees. It's your ability to produce force. In other words, lift more weight, or lift heavier weight. And if you can produce more force, it is the best thing you can do for your physical and mental existence. So how do we lift heavier weight? How do we get stronger and increase our force production capacity? Well, we should understand the sets and reps for strength training. So let's look at a great way that you could start would be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday split. We call this a 3-day split. And 3 days a week, you would do the squat, 3 sets of 5 reps. You would do either press or bench press. You would alternate these, 3 sets of 5 reps. And you would do the deadlift, only 1 set of 5 reps. That's right, only 1 set. So you will be doing fewer deadlifts than squats or presses. And make sure you don't ignore that, okay? It's like that for a reason. It's also important to add 5 pounds to the bar each session at this stage. So, for example, if on Monday you squat 3 sets of 5 at 100 pounds, on Wednesday you would squat 3 sets of 5 at 105 pounds. And on Friday, you would squat 3 sets of 5 at 110 pounds. Okay, so you will add 5 pounds to the bar each workout until you can no longer do so. And this is called the novice linear progression. You can see here on the chart, thanks to our friend Mark Ripito, author of Starting Strength, Barbell Strength Training, Basic Barbell Training, that the novice trainee's rate of adaptation is very high, meaning if you haven't trained before, you'll adapt very quickly, and your training complexity will be very low, so your program will be super simple when you start. So that's pretty cool, right? When you're a novice, you adapt very quickly, you get stronger very quickly, and your program will be very simple. So this is a great example of a nice, simple program, and you should start just like this. Notice that We don't train 2 days in a row at this stage. That's why it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. You could also do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday instead. But the key is that you are not training on consecutive days. Why is that so important? Well, it's because we're using a process called stress recovery adaptation. And this process is the backbone of our entire strength training. Okay, and it's super important that we understand that when we train, we're applying a stress with the barbell, and that stress can be easily measured with the weight on the bar. The recovery part comes from rest, meaning not training, sleep, and food. So we need to get the proper rest, sleep, and food to recover, and if we do that, we can expect an adaptation. What kind of adaptation do we want? Strength adaptation. We want to get stronger. So stress recovery adaptation. That's the cycle that we're using. And this is nothing new. The concept of progressive overload or a linear progression. The Greek tale of Milo lifting the calf showed the progressive nature of strength development. This was in ancient times, 540 BC. Notice that Milo gets bigger and stronger as the calf gets heavier. So let that be a reminder to you that if the weight on the bar doesn't go up, you can't get stronger. Remember, we're trying to increase our force production, so you have to lift progressively heavier weight over time in order to produce more force. Why are barbells so effective? It's because barbells allow the use of the most muscle mass over the longest effective range of motion. This results in hormonal effects and central nervous system activation due to the full body nature of the movements, and this can't be replicated any other way, so there's no substitute for barbells. It's very important in strength training that we train movement patterns and not body parts. The movement patterns that we'll train are the squat, press, deadlift, and bench press. They're the most fundamental movement patterns that every trainee should learn. Bodybuilders think in terms of their muscle groups, their biceps and triceps and deltoids, quads and hamstrings, but we are strength training. We're not bodybuilding, so we won't think in terms of our muscle groups, we'll think in terms of our movement patterns. And there's a good reason for this. The body evolved to work as a system. Your body works as a system in the real world right now. And the body likes to be trained as a system. It doesn't like to be chopped up into individual parts and trained individually. So we'll train the body as a system with movement patterns, not individual body parts. Rise of the machines. There's only one problem with barbells, and that is learning to use them. It could take some time to learn the correct technique, and you also need somebody to teach you the right technique. So in the 1970s, a man named Arthur Jones, invented the Nautilus machine circuit. And he was attempting to solve this problem. These machines work each body part separately, and they allow a health club to open to the public with a fairly minimal amount of education for the staff and for the trainee. And that's not meant to be disrespectful to the nice folks who exercise at Planet Fitness, but that's just the way it is. The machines are designed to basically eliminate the need for a barbell coach. This is currently the industry standard today. It's great for business. It's not necessarily great for strength training. Why is that? There's a problem with machines, unfortunately. Exercise machines usually involve sitting down and isolating a single joint, like this gentleman here seems to be isolating his shoulder joint. Machines cannot produce the systemic stress that a barbell can. You can only make progress for about 6 weeks on a machine-based circuit. This is called the novice effect. Everything works at first. Remember our little chart? You adapt very quickly at first. Barbells force you to control the barbell with your own body through gravity, and this is good. This is what makes barbells particularly good. Machines, on the other hand, force you to move according to the design of the machine, and this is bad. You can see, even though he's not isolating a single joint here, the guy on the hack squat machine is no longer moving in a straight line with gravity, and this is a problem. He's also using unstable shoes. What about dumbbells or kettlebells? Shouldn't you start with dumbbells or kettlebells and then work your way up to the barbell? Well, actually, no. Dumbbells and kettlebells are harder to control than barbells. That's because they lack a central shaft. They're not joined together. And they're unstable. And remember, we're trying to get stronger. Instability is not useful for strength training. We want to produce force in a stable environment, so we'll use a barbell instead of something unstable. Dumbbells and kettlebells should not be used by beginner trainees, contrary to popular belief. Barbells are for everybody, male, female, young, and old. I know there's a lot of popular culture that's tried to convince us that barbells are only for meatheads and muscle freaks, but I would urge you to reconsider that, okay? Because there are elderly people all around America now that are learning about this, that are getting strong, and they're maintaining their healthy body weight, and they're avoiding getting frail as they get old. So you can start training anytime in life. The only requirement is you must be past Tanner stage 4 of puberty. If you don't know what that is, just type it into Google. Tanner stage 4. If you're past Tanner stage 4, you're old enough to start training, and you can continue strength training until the day you die. Okay, machines encourage bad form and partial ranges of motion. It's easier to learn a correct movement pattern first, and it's hard to fix once you've learned and practiced it wrong. So just remember, it's best to start with barbells, not machines, not dumbbells or kettlebells. If you want to get stronger and produce more force, start with barbells. Don't be afraid, don't be intimidated. They are for you. What will you do with the barbells? You should do the lifts. What are the lifts? Well, every trainee should learn the squat, the press, the bench press, and the deadlift. I'm 40. I do these lifts. I have a trainee who's 50 years old. He does all of these lifts. I have a trainee who's 60 years old, and he does each of these lifts too. Some trainees can also learn the power clean, power snatch, and some ancillary and assistance exercises like, for example, chin-ups, good mornings, dips, and rows. But it's important to focus on the basics first. So start with the core lifts. We call these the slow lifts: squat, press, bench press, and deadlift first. Let's have a quick look at each of the lifts. Now, this is just an introductory video. It's not intended to be a deep dive on the technique, but we'll get into that in later content after this introduction. Let's have a quick look at the squat. The low bar back squat is ideal for strength training. There's also something called a high bar back squat, which we are not going to use. We can choose the most effective method, and in this case we've chosen the low bar back squat for strength training. It's better. Note the horizontal back angle. It's about 45 degrees, and the alignment of the bar over the midfoot, which is very important. This loads the hips. We want to load the hips, not the knees, in this type of squat, for an action called hip drive. Hip drive is an upward motion of the sacrum or low back out of the bottom of the squat. See the little arrow? Imagine shoving your butt up or driving your butt up out of the bottom while nipples point to the floor. This, I know it sounds a little funny, but this is a useful cue for a good low bar back squat. Drive your butt up, point your nipples to the floor. The press. The press is done standing without assistance from bending the knees. If you look at the sequence here, the lifter never unlocks his knees. or I should say, never bends their knees. The bar is locked down over the top of the shoulder joint with a shrug. Remember to lock out the press at the top with a shrug. The bar must stay aligned over the center of mass of the lifter. And if you look at the little circle in the middle of the lifter's hips, that's the center of mass. You'll also notice that the bar likes to travel in a straight vertical line over the center of mass. So the lifter pushes their hips forward, and it makes it easier to keep the bar over the center of mass. The elbows must be aligned under the bar. If you take a look at the elbow position, the elbow is even slightly in front of the bar. It's certainly not behind the bar. Elbows behind the bar is bad. A couple of cues for the press. Close to your face, meaning the bar will stay close to your face so it can stay closely aligned over the center of mass. Elbows up and vertical forearms. The bench press. The bench press should be alternated with the standing press on a 1-to-1 ratio. Again, so if you press on Monday, you would bench press on Wednesday, and you would be back to the press on Friday. And then you would reverse that the next week. The bar is locked down over the shoulder joint and touches the sternum at the bottom. This results in a slight moment arm in the bar path. If you take a look at this picture, just take a note of the touch point. You touch the bar to the sternum, but you lock it out over the top of the glenohumeral joint. We'll just call it the shoulder joint for now. The feet should press into the floor. They shouldn't be up in the air. They shouldn't be up on the bench. A couple of cues for the bench press. Pinch your shoulders back. And you should lock your elbows. Lock your elbows when you're taking the bar out of the hooks or putting it back into the hooks. Whenever the bar is over your face or neck, you should lock your elbows on the bench press. Very important for safety. The deadlift. The deadlift involves pulling a barbell from a dead stop off the floor. That's why it's called the deadlift. The deadlift is very fatiguing. If you do 3 sets of 5 squats, you would only do 1 set of 5 deadlifts in this program, really. So don't do, for example, 3 sets of 10 deadlifts just because the person on the news or the magazine told you to do that. You should do fewer deadlifts than you do squats because deadlifts are more fatiguing. There's a 5-step deadlift setup that you should follow for every rep, and it's easy to find that on YouTube. We'll get more into the specific technique later, but make sure when you do your deadlift that you follow the 5-step deadlift setup procedure. A couple of cues. Chest up, set your back. You want to set your back into lumbar and thoracic extension before you start the lift. You push the ground with your feet, so you initiate the lift by pushing the ground with your feet. I hope I've convinced you to consider barbell strength training. If you're interested in getting started, you might be wondering what you need to do so. Well, you might need to find a configuration similar to what you see here. That could be at a gym, or you could buy it yourself. And it's really not as expensive as you might think. For example, you can get a Rogue R4 Power Rack like you see here, $990. Starting Strength brand barbell, top of the line for $289. You can get a Rogue bench and a York plate tree for about $300 altogether. And then in this example, I got over 400 pounds of plates from the Strength Co., which makes the top of the line calibrated plates. I highly recommend you check out. This would equal over 400 pounds of weight. You could get all of this equipment for less than $2,500, and that's based on 2025 prices in the US, which actually really is not that bad. If you think about it, it's less than the price of a Peloton, and that would keep you busy for quite some time. You'd have to get your lifts over 400 pounds before you had to order any more weight. So good luck to you. I hope you're successful with that endeavor. Okay, I hope you're interested in starting training. What should you do if you want to start training? Well, option A, you go to startingstrength.com/gyms. This is a fantastic website. Check it out and see if you live near a starting strength gym, then that's your best training resource. You'll be able to train with a licensed SSC, a starting strength coach. These these folks are the best in the business. They're not cheap, but they are absolute professionals. They're experts, and you can't do any better than a real starting strength gym. But if you don't live near a starting strength gym, their next best option would be to purchase the starting strength book, the blue book, and train yourself. I've got an Amazon link here. And option C, you can email me, strongbongbarbelltraining@gmail.com. I have a little PDF that I created. It's got a training log for your novice linear progression and a little quick reference guide, everything you need to remember to get started. I'd be happy to send that to you for free. I'm just kind of a nerd about this stuff, so I want to spread it to as many people as possible. I want to thank you for paying attention through this whole video. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. Any feedback, I'd love to hear it. See you in the next video.